What's up, everybody? Hope you're having a fantastic day today, but if not, I'm going to make it a lot better because today we're talking about Joshua Fabia. A sentence I never thought I'd say while trying to make you guys feel better, but he was recently on a radio show that I co-hosted called Brain Fart, Behind the Scenes with Summer Helene and now bearfiorda. But he said some very interesting things, interesting being the very underwhelming term phrase there, but I want to go over some of the best moments that I found he gave out during that interview. So if you're ready, let's get it. Quick disclaimer, I'm a huge Diego Sanchez fan, so this is going to be very biased. By the way, guys, we're out here in my front yard in my MMA setup. I have my manager out here helping me out as we do the commentating on the audio, stopping and starting the play for me, just so I can give you guys the best clips that we had during that shoot.
And everything in my perception of reality was...
Stop right there.
Diego...
The entire time, this man only talked about his perception of his reality. Not once did he mention what reality actually was. He was utterly convinced that we only wanted to hear his take on it. Which, by the way, apart from the fact that it was utterly absurd, probably about 100% of the time, he couldn't get off the fact that his perception is not reality itself.
You know, he had some celebrity asshole tendencies. You know, he didn't like tipping, and he did some weird stuff in front of me that... You know,
stop that.
Some red flag.
He's talking about Diego obviously having that stereotypical thing where all celebrities are kind of like dicks to everyone under them or whatever. But the reality is he couldn't once mention any of these things. He threw out a bunch of speculations, a bunch of accusations that have no bearing on it whatsoever, all in the effort to try and defame Diego's name.
That's not an answer. We're looking for a direct answer. Did they tell him he had to throw a fight?
The way that they did it is in the lean, which is in talking to somebody and
Pause
angling
this.
their...
He's about to convince us, or try to convince us, that the Nevada State Athletic Commission came in and kind of like, just like mob style harassed Diego Sanchez. Like, you're not gonna try and hurt this man, are you? Like, they have some kind of leverage. They're gonna out him as some kind of mass murderer unless he does exactly what they say. He has either built it into his head or has convinced himself to a point, or is trying to convince everyone else, by the way, that the Nevada State Athletic Commission did everything possible to make sure Diego threw that fight and had no bearing on the other guy's capabilities or Diego's capabilities. It was all about trying to make Diego look as bad as possible, which always means trying to make Joshua look as bad as possible.
You're not trying to hurt him, are you, Diego? You're a sportsman, Diego. You've always been a good guy, Diego. You're not going to do anything with malicious...
Again, it goes back to the whole thing, like, everything he says this whole interview, by the way, everything when it's related to Diego himself, UFC, it doesn't matter, it's all going to come back to him. It all comes back to reflect on this man. He's got such a huge ego, so a real strong narcissistic complex if I've ever seen one before. And so even this right here where he's really pouring on how they're just really attacking Diego, trying to make sure that he doesn't hurt this guy in a UFC fight, which they have absolutely no leverage over him on. He's just trying to make it sound like they were really coming after him the entire time.
But the Nevada State Commission's not supposed to come in 30 minutes before a fucking fight and come and kick everybody out and come and talk that type of shit to a fighter and get in their head. Then on top of it, the last time Diego was a sportsman, he was a wrestler. So the first thing he comes out and does is goes and takes this guy's
Pause
leg.
it.
And
has zero to do with anything he just said. That was a complete deflection. He made a strong accusation, couldn't get past it, knew that we weren't going to buy it, so just jumped to something else entirely. Him being a wrestler has zero to do with the fact that the Nevada State Athletic Commission would have come in there to try and convince him or mob-style harassment and not hurting his then opponent.
So you tell me, how come my fighter that's been trained for 10 weeks to strike didn't throw a strike?
I can't
Pause
tell
right there
you.
too. Because people handle stress in funny ways. Sometimes you have good fights, sometimes you have bad fights. His mindset may have been somewhere in the clouds that night. We don't know what was going on with his head right there. We just don't, and we probably won't unless he comes out and says directly what happened in that fight if he has not already done so. So Joshua, to make the assumption that he went out there and did no striking at all, and that has something to do with how the commission was trying to harass him into not hurting his opponent at that time, is just complete... I can't curse. Can I curse? I'm going to curse. It's complete bullshit.
Like just, Summer, let me explain. They don't want to give us give Diego any of the contact
Okay,
information
pause
to
that. So, first of all, you can Google the contact information for any of the commissions you're working for as a fighter. You can reach out to them on a regular basis. There are actual companies that work for multiple promotions. That is how it works, period, no matter what. So you can Google that information yourself if you really want to call them. He did not need the UFC lawyers or whatever to tell them the information he needed. Not to mention, any commissions out there, by the way, who I may work for at some point in the future, or who I have worked for in the past, please don't give out my medical information to anyone that is not me. I don't care who they claim to be. Thank you.
I can give that to you in like 2 seconds. It's Googleable.
Well, that's great. I don't need it. You can give it to Diego.
Pause that.
My point is,
fucking caught right there. He knew he couldn't get around that. That's some common knowledge stuff. He was hoping we would just bypass he was hoping we'd bypass it just like we'd bypass the fact they were harassing him and to make sure he didn't hurt his opponent. And you'll immediately hear him try to deflect and go somewhere else.
So I get what you're saying, but we have...
So I sent you the email from his ex-wife. So
Pause that.
You did.
Go ahead and...
Okay, so you're about to hear him say he wants Summer to read out this email that he got from Diego Sanchez's wife, which, by the way, I don't know how he got these emails, this information from Diego and his wife's communications, but of course we wouldn't read that out to the public. We don't have the right to have that. Who knows how that man got it?
By this time, I end up being the person associated to all this crazy, as the UFC did not do anything for him, offer him any services, as his wife is saying.
Okay, pause that. First of all, the UFC would never let one of their fighters go without any help for any reason whatsoever. And the fact that he's able to give us information, again, goes back to the level of ridiculousness. Why does he have this information? Right? Yeah, it talks about some mental instabilities. Yeah, it talks about the fact she's having trouble. But you know what else the email talks about? I don't know. It wasn't my right to read the damn email.
Well, when you open this up, you did say you want to elaborate on the split. Now, while this is all very pertinent to that, I'm sure a lot has influenced your decision.
Before all this nonsense but email started, he said he wanted to talk about why they split up. He spent the last 10, 15 minutes, now maybe even 20 minutes discussing about everything but that. And I finally had to just pin this dude down and say, look, you open this up. You want to talk about it. This is why you're here. So let's get down to business. Stop filling us with a bunch of hot air.
I'm trying to explain my perception, and my perception of things is
Pause it.
something.
Once again, back to the whole his perception, not reality. What he perceives reality to be, which oftentimes is not reality.
I'm gonna cut this. This is minutia. People are writing in, and what they're concerned about, and what they're trying to address, is stuff like the OnlyFans and him naked wrestling in a
Pause
river.
this.
Like,
He flat out denied this. There's video evidence of Diego doing ankle locks in a river, nude, or at least so nude to the point that we couldn't tell if he was wearing anything at all. He flat out denies that, has no idea how it happened, why it got there, and it came from the page that he's hosting. We all know it's him. It says Diego Sanchez. We all know he wouldn't let Diego Sanchez on OnlyFans. He ran that page, put it up, and is now flat out saying it never happened.
There's no naked wrestling in Aruba. There's no.
Pause that. I beg your pardon. He tried to call it Aruba. He tried to pretend like he didn't. You guys all heard River. He heard River. It's just a way to get around the fact that he did it and didn't want to talk about it.
there is a perception that Diego Sanchez was not familiar with the kind of content you were putting up on OnlyFans. Is that true?
Diego knows exactly what's on there, and you can go look. It's all just training. What is the problem?
What about...
Pause that.
You're saying just
In just a moment, we're going to discuss the tags he used for this so-called training. And while he may try and promote that and may put up somewhat, actually very scandalous photos of what's going on during this training, him doing very odd things to say the least for these training videos and pictures, the titles are what got everybody. And actually, you hear me call one of them out right now.
this training. How do you quote these, or someone quotes them? You guys have to approve them. So this is just training. Quotes like, you know, you like that little tight butt. What kind of training video is that exactly putting out there?
Pause that. And then can't believe. And then he's about to convince Summer and me that that is how you're supposed to market to your fans, especially as a fighter.
I like how you're in the media and you don't know that market. If you know the
You
OnlyFans
bet your
market,
ass I would never sell a fighter like
Stop
that.
it.
I would never.
Right there. Media marketing person, works in Hollywood, executive producer, would never do a fighter like that. This guy has zero idea what he's talking about. and is very slowly picking that up. Hence, he continues to try and pry away at what he believes our knowledge should be, but it's not the correct knowledge if it doesn't match his.
I would never sell a fighter like that. That's why we're asking, and that's why people
Yeah,
are
never.
concerned.
Concerned about playing with the tantalizing words.
Okay, stop that for a second.
No.
One more thing I want to mention. This is a more serious point. When you have someone who is this far into the realm of what you would consider to be cultish behavior or cult leader-like behavior or even narcissistic, gaslighting behavior, they have this way of wording their statements, their rebuttals, their anything in a way that is attempting to demoralize you or coerce you in one way or another. At some point in the beginning of this interview, Summer asked him a question in which he said, "Now that is the right question." That is a way to teach people what to ask you. That is a way to teach people what to tell you, because it's what you want to hear, it's what makes you happy and goes along with your story. Same thing here, but the opposite, where he's talking in that slow, odd kind of tone, that very disappointed tone, like your parents would tell you when you're younger, as a way to play on the, you asked me the wrong thing, you said the wrong thing, and now you need to fix it if you want me to be happy, which of course we didn't give a shit about, so it didn't matter at the end.
People feel you're sexually exploiting Diego, and I'm trying to give you a platform to say you're not. That's the
Pause
fear
that.
on the internet.
He now says he's not, because we have, come out and basically gave him that answer on a silver platter. We gave this platform to say you're not, so easy to say you're not. But the whole rest of the time that we're discussing this, he couldn't say once, this was not for sexual exploitation. This was not to promote Diego in a sexual manner whatsoever. He even admits it was meant to tantalize or entice the audience, but he never once denied until we brought that up to him again. By the way, I just want to take a second and stop here and acknowledge the fact that he had no idea who he was talking to on this radio show, right? For one thing, he's talking to a media executive and a fighter, but he's trying to convince us both that we have no idea what we're doing for our jobs. Such as talking about things like body hardening, where you hit someone in the head to hopefully condition their skull, which, by the way, you can't do. That's not a real thing, no matter what he tries to convince you of. And how you market yourself to the fans, the people online, by using sexual graphic verbiage. No, not when the guy's a pro fighter who has so much more to offer than just that above all things. You don't see anyone else doing that. Conor McGregor may be doing some really funny stuff out there, but he's not out there flashing his butt in the camera for the audience.
I expect
What other
answers. We're not
question
giving-
would you like to ask?
Pause that.
That I'm not answering.
That goes back to that same behavior of, you're doing the wrong thing and pissing me off. Because he's now heard our questions several times, he's danced around them more times than I can count at this point, but yet he suddenly doesn't know what we're talking about. He suddenly doesn't know what we're asking him. Because he's hoping that if we have to repeat ourselves enough, we'll get tired and move on, or forget what we wanted to say and have to play back into his game until we can somehow rethink about our questions that we're trying to attack him with, even though we offered him the free platform to discuss what he wanted as long as he gave real answers, which, by the way, he hasn't done that. And for that matter, we invited him on when he was with Diego Sanchez. We were fully ready to let them use this platform to discuss whatever it is that was going on, what's going on for them in this whole situation with the UFC and the whole break with Diego and UFC's contract. But they split right before that, and he still chose to come on. So he was ready and willing to accept whatever questions we had for him, and he chose instead to lie, deny, and dance around every little thing that didn't make him happy. And by the way, we give him the opportunity to write in questions he would like to be asked. We asked those, he didn't answer them. So we started asking our own, because he refused to acknowledge even the questions he put on the sheet for us. And by the way, then got upset that we weren't asking him the right questions.
I'm trying to express how I feel.
Stop that. Once again with the whole, it's my perception, my feelings, not what reality is. Another thing super common with these type of people, especially him since he's been all over the media recently, is they don't want to talk about the real situation. They want to discuss how they feel about what's going on around them, not what is going on around them. This was hands down the hardest interview I ever did, because I had to stop myself from getting so angry so often with this guy. As a fighter, one of my biggest concerns long term is developing CTE, developing some kind of brain damage, and having some asshole like this swoop in and ruin my life like he did to Diego. That was just the hardest thing for me to grasp and have to deal with, is being so kind to this guy. And I get it. Sometimes I lost it. Sometimes I was a little forceful in my questioning. But that was me doing everything I could to hold back the edge, to basically ask this guy to fight me. To, hey, you know what? You're so great. You offered all this stuff and Diego just threw it back in your face. Well, hey, come show it off. Let's see what you can do against me. And by the way, he did ask to come back on because he feels like he wasn't heard. Summer said okay. She told me I had to behave. But it's really hard because I'm genuinely afraid. Talking to this man taps into one of my deepest fears as a fighter of what could happen to me. I don't know if anything he's about to say is true about Diego being on drugs, him being a sponsor. But I'll tell you right now, if that is true, then this sponsor's job is to shut the fuck up and not out that to everybody in the world. So that man is a super shitty sponsor at that, if we even believe he was. And if Diego was assaulted, why the hell would you be telling everyone that? If he wanted people to know, he would say it. You don't have to be the one to do it. It's none of your business.
So we have
Put it all out there. I'll put out all the proof. I got all the proof. I'll put out all the video, man.
Pause that. What do all the cult leaders, all the nonsense speakers, all the narcissists, all the gaslighters say? I have the proof, which equates to I don't have shit every single time. He's making it up. He'll put out nothing. He won't talk about this again if he can help it. If he gets on another radio show in however many years from now and this comes up, he's going to do everything in his power to deny it, pretend like what the guy then at that point is talking about isn't true, and that he never saw or spoke to Mere Summer. And now, at this point, now that every single road he's tried has been cut off, he's going to try and play the victim.
I'm the one getting death threats here. Like, nobody else.
Pause that.
No one starts.
He's getting death threats because he's abusing this man, not because this man's abusing him.
You're saying right now that he took advantage of you. Something he very publicly said was he cut off family members to prove loyalty to you.
Pause that.
If he's
It may be hard to hear right there, but what I told him is that Diego came out and said that he cut off family members to prove loyalty to Joshua. He tried everything he could right there to talk over me and stop me from saying what I was going to say so he can drown on about what he wanted to. The reality is, Diego came out and said he cut ties with family because they were either not loyal to Joshua or disrespecting Joshua or hurting his feelings because he believes in Joshua, and Joshua's going to deny that every step of the way. I believe martial arts saves lives, but anything done wrong could end horribly. So please, please be careful. When you go pick your gym, your sensei, coach, whoever, please pick a reputable one. One that is not going to be culty or lead you down a path that Joshua led Diego down. Alright guys, I think that's the most I can take at this point. If you want to hear the full interview, I will put the link in the description down below where you guys can go check out and listen to the whole thing from start to stop with everything this man had to say and every question that we asked him. You'd want to start somewhere between the 25 and 30 minute mark because that's about when he jumped on and we started discussing and bringing him up to the audience at the time. Apart from that guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. If you liked what you heard tonight, please remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more. Please don't forget to hit that bell to remind yourself when I put up new videos. And always remember to eat well, sleep well, train hard. I'll see you next time.